Hello, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing The Artist's Way Week 5 by Julia Cameron. This week we talked about the sense of possibility, so I will be going over my highlights from the reading and then I will be going into the tasks and what I learned from them. The first subject that Julia talks about in the reading this week is the idea of limits and how a lot of artists on their way to their creative journey and on their path, they think that they have a lot of physical limits happening, money, time, physical health, but really the most problematic limits are the ones that we have on ourselves internally. So she helps us in this chapter identify what those limits could mean and kind of puts a fire under your butt and says, you know what, removing these limits and clearing these limits, if they're relationships, if it's the country you live in, whatever, these are your limits to remove, and limiting beliefs are the ones that are the hardest to identify and the hardest to admit, and those are the ones that you need to tackle first. So Julia gives an example of this where a writer had a manager who was quite abusive to her, but he was giving her opportunities that she thought she wouldn't otherwise have. And she was really scared to fire him, to let go of him, because she thought that maybe she didn't deserve anything better, that she wasn't worthy of anything better. So it took her weeks and weeks and eventually months to get to a point where she was so tired of this manager, she was willing to risk leaving her whole career behind so that she could have freedom on the other side of it. And the moment that she took that leap of faith and fired that manager, the next day she walks into a cafe and somebody sits down next to her and they get to talking, and through that little synchronicity she finds her new manager, whom she went on to be very successful with. So Julia talks about how that limiting belief that she wasn't worthy of a better manager, or the limiting belief of, oh, this is just how show business is, this is just how it has to be, was all in the writer's mind. And by firing the manager, she was actually opening herself up both physically and mentally to brighter horizons. What I got from that story is that you must be the one to end your own suffering. Nobody's going to come around with a magical broom and dust away all the dirt and all the debris so that you can emerge as a fully formed artist. You have to be the one to do that. And as I talked about in my video last week, that's the beauty of art, because you don't have to start fully healed. You can start as broken as possible and through your art heal and show others what your healing journey looked like, what your healing process looked like, because art is healing. Also, within this subject, Julia gives a very clear definition of what manifestation really is and how it really works, and I think that everyone could benefit from hearing her definition of it, so I'll go ahead and read it. We must, in good faith, clear away our inner barriers to acting on it, and then, on an outer level, take the concrete steps necessary to trigger our synchronous good. So manifestation starts with mindset, and I think by saying clear away our inner barriers, that's the act of getting yourself in the right mindset, and of believing that you're worth what you want. Are you worthy of that trip to Indonesia that you want to go to? Are you worthy of your perfect partner? You yourself have to believe that before you can welcome in any sort of gifts or synchronicities. And then she switches to the outer perspective and she says, then you must take the concrete steps necessary. That doesn't have to be, saving $1 million and starting a business. That doesn't have to be the concrete step she's talking about. A concrete step could just be, I don't know, for example, I'm a singer, so going to a cafe in Prague where I live, meeting the manager, giving him my card, showing him my website, and say, hey, I'd love to perform, let me know, here's my hourly. Just those sort of concrete steps can open you up to my eventual dream of being on Broadway. So I really loved this definition of manifestation, and I think a lot of people would like to hear it, because sometimes it's hard to explain what manifestation is without it sounding so whoopy. So I loved that she did this. Then Julia's next subject for the reading is called Finding the River, And this is the river of not only your spiritual connection, but just your artistic flow, I would say. It's that tap that you can open and close and kind of let it drown you in artistic ideas. And the idea of being in flow when you're working on something that you love is meditative, and it just feels right and it feels easy. And she wants us to find that river. It usually isn't until I've been working on a song or working on a painting for an hour where I really get to that place of deep flow. And it's almost like if somebody comes up and talks to me, I won't be able to understand anything. I don't get hungry. I don't need to go to the bathroom. This is flow. This is just a one-track mind, tunnel vision on the thing that I'm creating. She reminds the reader that in order to find the river, it's extremely important that you feel safe. She says, "Freed from our terrible fears of abandonment, we are able to live with more spontaneity." I think that's beautiful. Having stability in your friendships, relationships, home life is necessary for getting into flow, I feel, or having that special place that you can go to maybe outside of your house where you can just sit down and work and relax is really important for finding the flow. You can't find the flow if your nervous system is out of whack. The biggest part of recovery, she says, is the process of finding the river and saying yes to its flows, rapids, and all. Next to that quote, I wrote, accepting that there is a river could be the hardest part of all. Accepting that there is this untapped potential as a creator, as an artist, can be really hard for artists to admit to ourselves, because that imposter syndrome can come right up, bite you in the neck, bring you back down, saying, yeah, you have a river and it's flowing and it's healthy and it's happy and it's fresh, but nobody cares. That's kind of what my censor tells me a lot. It tells me that nobody cares to see the work that I'm doing, and every time I show it to someone, I have these afterthoughts, or days later I'm thinking about it and ruminating on the thought that I was pushing something on them that they didn't want to see, and they were only watching because they wanted to be nice. That's the imposter syndrome thought that comes to me a lot, and so that's why I wrote that part about finding the river and accepting the river is extremely hard, because maybe you just want to choose an easier route and get a corporate job and make money a much easier way, instead of seeing the river and saying, that's a healthy river, we can do something with that. Accepting the river does not have to be, yes, immediately, you're the one, I'm taking you, and let me get on my canoe and ride this river down. She says, by replacing no way with maybe, we open the door to mystery and magic. It's just that slight change of language that kind of helps to push your mindset in the right direction. You can start with saying maybe to something, and later it opens up to hell yes. The river, which she also refers to as the internal guide, she has a nice quote about it. I'll read it now. As we come to trust and love our internal guide, we lose our fear of intimacy because we no longer confuse our intimate others with the higher power we are coming to know. In short, we are learning to give up idolatry, the worship, full dependency on any person, place, or thing. When you embrace your inner artist and you allow yourself to flow with the river, the scarcity and the insecurity, those feelings kind of go away. You don't really feel like you need your family, friends, places, things all that much. You have this sense of resourcefulness and independence, and just this belief that you can go and be successful anywhere. I think that's what she's trying to explain. I haven't entirely felt that. I think that takes more introspection and more confidence in your artwork, but I'm definitely starting to feel that way, starting to feel less attached to the things and the people in my life in a healthy way, in a great way. So I like that she mentioned that, because it was definitely something I pondered in my morning pages. Lastly, she ends this little section of Finding the River with a quote, "One of the central tasks of creative recovery is learning to accept this generosity. This generosity, she means, is opportunities and generosity and money and abundance that are coming from the universe into your lap. Don't look at an opportunity and immediately dismiss it because you don't think you're worthy. Just try saying maybe to it. Accept the generosity, because that's how you bring more into your life. The last section of the reading is called The Virtue Trap. An artist must have downtime, time to do nothing. Defending our right to such time takes courage, conviction, and resiliency. Such time, space, and quiet will strike our family and friends as withdrawal from them. And it is. When I first got to San Diego about 3 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, I went through a major withdrawal period. Even from my family, I needed to just lay down and read and focus on myself, my time, and just kind of take note of the emotions I was feeling in my body. There's a yellow butterfly. That means my grandma's here. Nice. It was a big one too. Because otherwise I am 100% an overworker. The minute I finish a project, I start a new one, and that's what she calls the virtue trap, is where you get rewarded for something and then you want to fall right into doing it the same exact way. But if you're doing something in an unhealthy way, then you're going to get stuck in a feedback loop of overworking yourself, getting a reward, and then thinking that that's the only way to do something, and then overworking yourself again. That's how I understood it, because as I can't repeat this enough, the readings are so subjective, and obviously I'm taking it from my lens and how I am and how I operate in the world. This section made me think of all the forced outcomes that I've created with my overworking. She talks about being an overly virtuous person to avoid that downtime, and thus to avoid healing your inner artist so that you can create more art and you can create more things for yourself. She talks about how people in our society are rewarded for doing and sacrificing things that they love to do. For example, there's a guy named Fred. He gives up his concert tickets so he can go help his neighbor move. Why does that make Fred a great person if he's giving up something that's important to him, something that he loves? So she talks about how in society it's kind of silly that we reward people for doing things that hurt them. I thought that was really interesting. And in the margin I wrote, "Oof, how many times have I done some self-sacrifice ass shit?" I can think of a lot of times where I've sacrificed my sleep or my rest or my one day off so that I can make another person feel loved by me. That happens a lot, where I feel like I'm pulled in a lot of directions for people to want my time, and they want that quality time with me. And so I sacrifice the time for myself that I need to get in the right energy and the right mindset. And then the quality time that I end up spending with them isn't too great anyway. It's not even worth it to be overly virtuous. It's not even worth it to be so generous with your time. She ends the section of reading saying, "Are you self-destructive?" That's the end of the reading section, and then it goes into lots of lists. There's a quiz, there is an exercise, and then you write a wish list. And then it goes into the tasks. This was separate from tasks. I'm not sure why, but this was just part of the reading, I guess, a little extra reflection. And for the wish lists, I'm not a big wish list person. I don't like to make lists that say, I want, I wish. I go for a more cocky approach, and I make my list saying, I have, I am, because that is better for manifesting. It's better for training your mindset so that you can welcome in those gifts of the universe. You know what I mean? So instead of I wish, I said, I have. So I won't go too in depth into the tasks this week. I'll just kind of list them and say which ones that I liked the most, I guess. So one of the tasks was to create a vision board, a dream board, and this is always really great to just have a physical visual aid that you can look at and feel inspired by every time you look at it. She wanted us to list 5 more imaginary lives as well, and I had some surprising ones that came out of my stream of consciousness, so that was pretty cool. Task 4, if I were 20 and had money, and then you list 5 adventures you would do and you would go on, and something, I am 21, and I have just enough money to make it by to the end of the month every month, which is great. It's all I need. But if I had money, I wrote down some very interesting things that I wasn't expecting, and one of them was buying and renovating villas in Italy. Oh, I would love to do that. So I'm going to try to welcome in some of those opportunities. Task number 6, 10 ways I'm mean to myself are. This was a hard one because the ways in which I'm mean to myself I've never put into words before, so there are 10 ways, but I just had to figure out how to word them, and it's just hard to accept the little things you do to yourself that are mean. One of the subtlest ways I'm mean to myself is just going on Instagram and doom scrolling. It's not good for me. It's not good for my mindset, it's not good for my body, it's not good for my posture. So that's a subtle way in which I'm mean to myself. And there, of course, are more intense ways, but at the same time, I was kind of glad that it took me so long to think of all these ways in which I'm mean to myself, because maybe that means I'm not super mean to myself. I hope that I'm nice to myself. And then she asked us to say our favorite creative block. I would say my favorite creative block is working. That's a big one because it's such a good excuse. Oh, I have work, I have to do this, I have to put bacon on the table, you know? Another one this trip has been overreading. I've been reading so much, and maybe it's gotten to a point where I need to dial it back a little bit because honestly it's all I've been doing. And then lastly, my favorite creative block is prioritizing time with my friends over everything else. And I'm not even mad about this one because my friends are amazing, so it's just the way it goes right now. And the 9th and the 10th task were about writing about the payoff for keeping yourself blocked. The biggest payoff for keeping myself blocked is the sense of safety, the invulnerability of being just a non-creative person. The biggest fear inside me is that I will go for what I've wanted to do my entire life, my biggest dream, the thing that I stay up all night thinking about sometimes, and I'll fail at it. That is the biggest payoff, is staying in that little imaginary bubble of one day it'll happen, one day I'll do that, one day I'll do this. Because living in that bubble is much easier than finally going for what you want to do and then failing at it and then thinking about what you want to do for the rest of your life after that. And that concludes the tasks. Final little review for the week. I did my journaling every single day. I switched back to more mornings as I wanted to do. I would say I did 4 mornings and 3 random sporadic throughout the day, just because it is so busy with the baby and with my family, and I just kind of go with the flow because I'm on break and I can do whatever I want. My artist date this week was really fun. I went to an aerobic dance class and a synchronicity happened there. Actually, a huge revelation happened this week, and it's that after I graduate in June in Prague, I'm moving back to California. I'm going to spend 6 months saving here, and then I am going on a big journey to Southeast Asia, and I'm starting in India and then flowing through Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand, and I'm planning that all right now. I'm so excited, and as soon as the seed was planted from my imagination into my logic brain, I've just been building the trip. And at the end of this dance class, the teacher came up to me as I was sitting down and stretching, and she just sparked up a conversation. She said, "Are you visiting from college? Blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about going to Southeast Asia afterwards." And she said, "No way, I lived there for 3 years." And so she sent me this, or she's going to send me this text of all the favorite places that she went. And that was just a fun little synchronicity. A lot of other things happened. I celebrated New Year's Eve with such great people, and we sang musical theater all night, and it was just super pleasant. So I would say that was a synchronicity in and of itself, was just to get a reminder in my head that I'm meant to be performing, I'm meant to be singing, and it's my truth, it's what I'm meant to do. Overall, this week of recovering a sense of possibility is exactly right. I looked at all my options I could go for after graduating university, and the one I'm choosing right now is really exciting. Just saving money and going on another world adventure and traveling by myself. I'm really excited, and I do feel like my possibilities are limitless right now. I don't feel scared. I feel abundant, which actually leads into the next week because it's called Recovering a Sense of Abundance, which I'm really excited about. I've read a lot about abundance and what it means to release and let go and just welcome good things into your life. So I'm excited to touch up on this subject again, and I'm excited to make another video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.